Hey, welcome to episode number 77 of the Canadian Prepper Podcast. We are recording on July the 19th, 2020. My name's Eric, the host of the show, based in Southern Ontario. I'm a hunter, target shooter, ham radio operator, and computer geek. As a first responder, I witnessed an over-reliance on emergency services during major events, and I started a small preparedness company to help people get better prepared for at least 72 hours, if not longer.
My name is Ian, and I live on Vancouver Island. I'm an outdoor enthusiast, reloader, and my farm's designated handyman.
And I'm Hugues from Nova Scotia. I'm a Canadian Armed Forces veteran, volunteer firefighter and station chief, and also a volunteer search and rescue technician and a prepper. I've been preaching and living the prepper lifestyle to varying degrees for the last 6 years or so, and this was born out of necessity for the short-term and long-term survival of my young family, which includes 3 children.
My name is Tyler. I live in Northwest Wisconsin. Besides prepping, I also enjoy homesteading, metalworking, woodworking, engines, guns, and the great outdoors.
And if you want to help support the show and keep the Canadian Prepper Podcast on the air, please buy a Canadian Prepper Podcast t-shirt, at rapidsurvival.com. All proceeds help keep the lights on and the backup generators fueled.
And if you're enjoying the show, please take a few minutes, like us on Facebook, and submit a review on iTunes. We want your feedback, good or bad. Or if there's a topic you want us to cover, you can email us at feedback@prepperpodcast.ca.
All right, so we've got some infantile content for you in this episode. Yes, the jokes continue into episode 77. We're going to first start off with some preparedness-related news articles. Next, we're going to let you know what we did for our preparedness since the last episode. Then we're going to get into the main topic of adjusting your preps for kids. Let's move into some news.
All right, so tonight, as we speak, we have a tornado warning in southwest Ontario. So Alan's not just showing disdain for the fans. He's actually without power tonight. He got pelted by some heavy rain, but also some guys from the other podcast, Patriot Podcast, were telling me that the roof is covered in hail, and some pretty nasty looking clouds around. So it's one of those nights to have a good basement set up or a storm shelter. So I'll put the link in there as well.
Absolutely.
I don't think we covered it yet, but it's I'm not trying to get political or anything, but it's just pretty unprecedented to notice that the government, while not offering a full budget, did mention the fact that they are running a $343 billion deficit right now, which is on line to put our national debt over $1 trillion by the end of the year. So as far as an economic collapse and or economic issues goes, that's just something maybe you should keep on the horizon for now for preparedness.
I thought the budget just balances itself, though.
Or it grows from the heart outward. One of the two. I don't know. But
maybe a little bit of both.
Yeah.
Those are literally money compared to the States.
Well,
long ways to go.
but one tenth the population. We should only have 1/10 the debt, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. You're pretty close there too.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Not if the Liberals had their way, but
I've got a news article here out of Montreal in regards to a man being arrested after refusing to wear a mask at the local Tim Hortons. So I threw this in here just as a reminder to everybody that people are, they're out and about. Things are starting to loosen up a little bit as far as lockdowns and such go with COVID. But just keep your head on a swivel and keep in mind that people are still reporting on each other, and not everybody is acting as civil as everybody else. So just keep your eyes open. It feels like things are kind of going back to normal, but not necessarily. So
I think when a lot of people are like scared or they don't feel they have control, they tend to act out under duress in strange ways. I think one of them is, like, for example, calling the police because a guy's not wearing a mask, which really, worst case scenario, it's going to affect him more than anybody else. But that was, watching the video that's in that article, it's a little extreme as to how fast it escalated and how bad it went. Never underestimate the stupidity of a mob.
Yeah. You see those videos constantly down here too. People videotaping, oh, you're not wearing a mask, yelling at some innocent man in the store. It's like, okay, if you're really worried from a safety perspective, you'd be 100 times safer just walking by. As opposed to standing there screaming at this guy face to face for 5 minutes about why he's not wearing a mask.
That kind of beats the whole point.
Exactly.
And I find, at least, in where I am here on the East Coast of Canada, it's not a law that you have to wear a mask anywhere. So if a private business is asking you to wear a mask, it's not they're not infringing on your rights. It's a private business. They can deny you service if you're not wearing a mask, and that's it, right? And then, the local government is saying that, for riding on the buses and ferries and all that kind of stuff, you will have to wear a mask, and people are all up in arms about it. And it's like, well, then buy a car, just don't take the bus or something. Anyways,
Yeah, it's interesting times, and yeah. Keep your
For
head
my
down, so-
article, so this was from a couple weeks ago, actually, and it was an article in The Guardian, which is, I guess, one of the more reputable news outlets. There's quite a few that aren't, but The Guardian seems to be pretty good. So it's just about how a lot of people, the mainstream media, and just your average Joe were mocking preppers and survivalists until the pandemic happened. And it goes really in depth into the lessons that can be learned from preppers and survivalists and all that kind of stuff. Maybe not digging as deep down the rabbit hole as some of us do, but there's some pretty good lessons to be had in there for the average Joe. So just a really good article I found.
Nice.
I think this whole year has been a good justification for preparedness.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been just a big commercial.
Yeah.
I've got 3 separate articles, all from the Daily Wire. First one is talking about Portland protesters. Portland protesters led by the anti-Fascist group Pacific Northwest Youth Liberation Front threatened police and set a number of fires in the city's downtown Saturday night. The incidents, which were all caught on video, and you can see in the link there, these mark the 52nd night of unrest in Portland. Protesters there have been trying for days or weeks to establish an autonomous zone similar to the one we saw in like the CHAZ chop zone we saw in Seattle. So in response to that, the next article talks about this. The Department of Homeland Security recently deployed an elite unit of law enforcement operators known as BORTAC, or the Border Patrol Tactical Unit, to Portland this week. The New York Times described BORTAC as an elite tactical unit that operates in a similar fashion as a SWAT team, but for the Border Patrol. These guys got additional gear such as stun grenades and enhanced special force type training, including sniper certification. Officers typically conduct high-risk operations targeting individuals who are known to be violent, many of them with extensive criminal records. So this is basically federal officers. They're in full camouflage military uniform, and they've got like the police patch on the chest there. You basically see them rolling up in an unmarked minivan. They hop out. They'll approach somebody. Typically, the Antifa guys are all dressed in like all black, and they've got masks. It's pretty easy to pick them out, really. So they roll up to these guys, basically throw them in a minivan, and then drive off. So that's been going on for 3, 4, 5 days now.
So they take them away for an attitude adjustment. It's good.
Yeah, apparently.
Well, it's like I remember, like, of course, like Portland's only less than a day's drive away from here, and quite often you'll see the bumper sticker on a lot of the Oregon plates, and it says, keep Portland weird. It's like, well, mission accomplished. But
no kidding. No kidding.
Some of those groups sound a little extreme with their namings.
Yeah, and that always seems to be a hot spot for kind of all the civil unrest and protests and whatnot. And then I guess the final article I've got, in response to all the civil unrest that we have been seeing in the States, in June, background checks for firearms were up 136% compared to a year earlier. In the single month of June alone, the FBI reports that 3,931,000 background checks were processed, which is the highest since the FBI began conducting checks 20 years ago. Gun dealers estimate that some 40% of these sales are first-time gun buyers. So people are arming up to protect themselves, rightfully so, in my opinion.
And interestingly enough, it sounds like they were actually, like, it's all anecdotal, but it sounds like a lot of them are leaning from the Democratic side of things.
Yeah, absolutely.
And actually, interestingly enough, because that famous guy that defended his mansion with the AR-15 and his wife with the pistol, they were Democrats, like lifelong Democrats. And like, it's actually kind of funny how I think this has been the best use case scenario for the Second Amendment for the states since January going too, right? So
it looks like they're choosing to lawfully possess them too.
Yeah, imagine that.
Yeah,
going
through all
they should be
things to jump through, and why not? Well, shall we move into what we've done lately for preps?
Yeah.
Start with Hugues. Yeah, you're muted, Hugues.
Sorry, guys. I haven't done a lot on the prepping front. There's been lots of work on the property grounds, some maintenance on the home as well. I had some contractors come in for the yearly heat pump and water system treatment and maintenance. I also spent a couple hours on the enclosed trailer. So mine is about 7 or 8 years old now. So I needed a new coat of paint on the tongue and the jack, fresh coat of epoxy on the floor. I scraped the roof of all the sealant and reapplied some self-leveling sealant. So it should be good for another 8 years, hopefully. And that's all I got to in the last week or so.
Hey, that's all right. Better than nothing. For myself, so with the the backyard getting all filled in and backfilled and all that, the crew let me drive the bulldozer around and gave me a quick lesson on how to operate it. So that was fun. And apparently I'm now a professional. No, far from it, but I could push some dirt, move some piles around, and made it go back and forth, and I can move the blade around. So I got a basic understanding of how to operate it now. So always good to learn a new skill.
Always fun operating heavy equipment too.
Oh yeah. I was like a kid in a candy store. It was great.
If there's one thing the A-team can teach us, that no knowledge is ever wasted. So you can always take that bulldozer and run it through the warehouse side when you're saving the day or whatever.
All kinds of stuff I can do now. I asked them to leave the bulldozer as part of the deal. It didn't work out, but
got to get better at negotiating.
Yeah, I know, but I do. So it's still here for now, anyways. And also started planning out the fence. Now that we've got a whole bunch of property reclaimed, looking at some further security measures, because I have noticed a whole lot of nosy neighbors coming by to have a look at what's going on now that they can actually see our property and see the house, and because it was all just a bunch of bush and stuff back there before. So we're looking at doing the fence now, and certainly heightening some of the security features for out back, because like I said, nosy neighbors. I'm no longer out in the middle of nowhere. There's lots of people around, so we're going to start planning that out.
Well, you guys just try wearing tidy whities and a wife beater or something, and you can just maybe they won't want to come by then.
Yeah, but then you just end up at the the hospital and the psych ward. That's no fun. I want to be at my house. Yeah,
for myself, mostly just working. Still at least 2/3 or better of my regular schedule. So yeah, hasn't slowed down that much for me because of the COVID. So yeah, still working many days. But luckily, work did allow me to have breakfast with Colin in Ottawa. So our regular podcast panelist here, Colin, and I managed to meet up and have a few hours together over some breakfast. Of course, everything was closed in Ottawa, so we had to sit out for McDonald's. But what are you gonna do? So
Egg McMuffins are great.
Yeah, and takeout only at that. So it was kind of funny, but no, it's good to finally meet face to face. That was the first time for us. Did a couple CGN deals. See here, in the process of trying to get the house ready for sale. Had appraisals done, fixing some minor things like even sprucing up the barbecue. I just actually added the trailer hitch idea because of what Hugues mentioned. But yeah, I've actually got a trailer hitch in my truck that I needed to take the angle grinder to, take some rust off, repaint it, and get ready in case I have to start hauling stuff with it. Yeah, see here. Actually, interesting note from the realtor that came and did our house appraisal. She mentioned that there's tons of people from Vancouver looking to come to the island because of the COVID. They were all stuck in their houses, and some of them came back from their place in Arizona and got stuck in their apartment for 2 weeks and couldn't walk their dog and so on and so on. They all want to say, nope, I'm out of the city. Get me out of here. So they actually are all interested in starting their own, as she put it, self-sufficiency acreage. So she's like, this place would be perfect for that. I was like, you don't say. That's so weird.
Interesting.
Yeah. Anyway, so she was like, yeah.
The podcast.
Yeah, that'd be good. So
listen to.
Yeah. So I had a kind of good giggle about that, but yeah, lots of city people seem to be interested in getting away from population centers, which is interesting. Mm-hmm. Ordered 2 cords of wood because despite all my chopping and splitting everything else, I may not have enough for next winter, and I just want to make sure that in case things go haywire with the second wave, that I have enough and then some. So I just ordered some extraneous stuff to show up. It should be here tomorrow, and that's pretty much it.
Yeah, so for myself, it's been really hot and humid here in Wisconsin the past 3 or 4 weeks straight, so progress has been a little slow but steady. Just touching briefly on kind of last week's podcast about the heat and humidity, we've been getting daytime highs around 90 degrees Fahrenheit, dew points around 80, so the feel-like temps are well above 100 for a few consecutive days in a row. And then this hot, humid weather typically leads to some really stormy weather afterwards. So we'll get usually 2-3 days of really hot, humid weather and then a terrible storm. And that's what we were dealing with last night. And I also missed a podcast a few weeks back for the same reason. We were sitting down the tornado shelter. And last night, again, was one of those nights. We had tornadoes touch down just a couple miles south of us, multiple structure fires in the surrounding cities from lightning strikes, and lots of hail and wind damage. Luckily, our property's been mostly spared, besides quite a bit of standing water, especially in the pig pen. Those guys are up to their ears in mud, and they are having a good time. But I just wanted to remind everyone, take storms seriously. They move in really quick. I came in yesterday afternoon from cutting, splitting wood, kind of knowing that there was supposed to be some rain coming through later on, and it was tornado warning was just 20-30 miles straight west of us and heading directly for us. Luckily, it kind of dissipated, or at least the tornado threat did. by the time it got to us. But we did get 2 inches of rain last night, 1.5 inches the night before, and just been some crappy weather. So make sure you guys take the storm serious. Have a good shelter base, or like a shelter in the basement or a room or something. Even if it's just like a table to crawl under. Have a radio, some way to get communications, and then some flashlights. Besides the storms, I just want to report all 8 pigs are doing well, but it has been kind of a chore keeping their pen intact with all the rain. Besides that, I've tore down 4 large wooden pallets and have been repurposing lumber for various building projects and built some shelves. I talked a few weeks back about moving some sheds onto the property, and I got that done, and I've gone through, I rebuilt all the doors on the sheds, replaced all the latches and things, and then went through, kind of refastened all the siding, and then painted both of the sheds. The smaller one we've got kind of behind the house here, between the house and the garden. And I've got that set up as a garden shed now. I've got all my rakes, shovels, chainsaw, leaf blower, all that kind of stuff moved in there. I'm trying to clear out the barn and kind of working simultaneously right now to set up for some goats in the barn. Also slowly working on getting the other shed ready for poultry and possibly raising some rabbits in there. We also built and planted 4 mushroom beds. So we've got some wine caps, snow oyster, shiitake, and morel mushrooms, hopefully growing now. Plenty of work in the vegetable garden. We've been doing some reseeding, always plenty of weeds to pull. And then harvesting today, we finally got kind of our first big harvest. Green beans, peas, cucumbers, and summer squash. So along with the garden harvest, we've also been canning blueberry jam and some rhubarb jam as well. I did some maintenance on the truck and the car. Along with Ian, been cutting, splitting, and stacking some firewood. And then for fun stuff, we just got a puppy 2 days ago. So it's a Jack Russell Airedale Terrier. So we're hoping to raise that to kind of be our farm dog and hopefully watch over the property.
What did you name it?
Bingo. So Bingo is his name.
Excellent.
And then I got to go back to work this upcoming Monday. So my extended self-quarantine is going to be soon coming to an end. And it's back to reality.
I think you wouldn't speak for Max Preps.
Well, it's been a couple of weeks. I got kind of a laundry list, but
you've got a couple of pages worth where Ian usually does. So
somebody's got to fill in the blanks, right?
That's good. Well, with that, shall we move into the main topic?
Yeah.
All right.
Take it away, Ross.
Yeah. So the main topic for this episode is getting the kids prepared for preparedness or prepping. And it's a topic actually that a listener asked us to touch on, and quite frankly, it's a good one to kind of have in the back of your mind, whether you have kids already or you're thinking about having them. You're going to have some kind of plan in place for them. You're going to have some equipment and some gear for them as well. So all the panelists have kind of gone through. We've put some stuff in a list together as far as what we think you should have, some things to add to your kits, and some things that you can do. So for myself, some of the stuff that I've got on my list here is, engaging your kids in some of the activities, depending on their age, right? You're going to have to gauge this towards the age group. Obviously, if you've got an infant versus a teenager, things are going to be completely different, right? But once they're old enough, you can kind of start getting them involved in things like camping. It's fun. Get them outdoors, get them used to, living off the land a little bit and exploring, and what kid doesn't like camping, right? So kind of a good spot to start out. And then another thing I've got here is playing some games, so make it fun. The whole preparedness thing doesn't have to be a doom and gloom, sit them down and tell them the world's going to end and how terrible things are. Have some fun with it, because why not? Who wants to sit down and scare their kids half to death, right? Like that's going to get you nowhere, and they're just going to be terrified of everything. So make it fun. When you're camping, you can do things like teach them how to build a fire, how to responsibly look after the fire, how to go through the forest and find wood that's appropriate for burning, and teach them what's not going to work. Right? And it's a way of you learning as well. Maybe you're not overly confident with that, so you can learn as well as you go, and find stuff that's going to burn well, burn long, and you can introduce maybe cooking over the campfire at that point, how it works, how you can best build up coals and then start cooking, and just make it a fun thing. You can make a meal for everybody who's camping with you, and then have them make something small along the way, or maybe give them a job of, hey, we're going to make the main meal here, and you can make the dessert and make like a s'more or roast marshmallows. Just make it fun.
Mm-hmm.
Then they've learned a skill. It's been fun and engaging, and it's not the doom and gloom of, oh my God, the world's ending, put your tinfoil hat on.
Yeah. And I think a good way to do that with kids is kind of try to make things a competition. Like, all right, let's see who can collect the most firewood in the next 5 minutes, or who can get their fire started first, or, you know, you can kind of apply that to almost any topic. And it seems like an easy way to make it quote unquote fun, you know, at least for them.
Yeah, and it can be fun, right?
Yeah, it's absolutely, yeah.
Everybody can have fun with it, and they're learning a new skill along the way.
Mm-hmm. I bought there was more light my fire knives for the kids when we first moved to BC, and first thing we did was like, you know, just made sparks just for fun, right? You know, in the air and, you know, just goofing around. Then later on, we put it to like the test with like easy stuff, like, you know, with the cotton balls and Vaseline. And then we went down to the hardcore stuff. And yeah, you escalate like that. Then you have little contests and everything else on the camping trips. So it turns into a little bit of fun for sure.
Yeah.
I found for me at least, and I mean, I have 3 young children that are 2, 4, and 6, and you know, when I first started prepping, one of the first things I started, you know, kind of hoarding was food, right? And understanding that as an adult, you know, I'm gonna have wants and needs when it comes to food, but it really comes down to what I need and what my body needs. And I mean, I'm willing to eat stuff that I typically wouldn't eat because I know I'm going to be able to, you know, get more calories in and all that kind of stuff. But when it comes to kids, anyone who has kids understands that it's not always easy to get them to eat something nutritious. So you really have to think about incorporating their wants, not necessarily their needs. Well, I mean, their needs and their wants when it comes to, you know, food preparedness for your kids, right? So eating rice and beans every day for 3 months, it's probably not going to fly with them. But if you incorporate things that you know that they like, right? So don't try to introduce foods when you're in a very stressful situation with the kids, right? Look for comfort foods. Look for things that you know that they're going to eat. Like for my kids, I mean, if I make, you know, mashed potatoes and ham or mashed potatoes and steak, the kids all eat it. So I know that that's a meal that I can fall back on, that they're going to get protein, they're going to get carbs, or, you know what I mean? Like, I know that I'll be able to satisfy their nutritional needs, as well as I know that they're going to eat it. If I'm trying to introduce foods, in the best of times, you know, I can get a lot of pushback from the kids, which is frustrating. But imagine me being in a stressful situation where we've had to bug out. The kids won't eat anything. I'm throwing away a bunch of food because they're not eating it. So that's just not ideal, right? So I think it really comes down to understanding what your kids will eat, things that are go-to as far as snacks and meals and things that you know that they're going to consume without too much pushback. And you know what, even if it's not the healthiest, at least it's calories. At least you're getting something into them, right? And then a couple other points like hygiene. I mean, kids have different hygiene requirements than adults do. I mean, they have, you know, I mean, soap is soap, but I mean, if you can bring kids soap that, you know, it gets in their eyes and they won't cry, that's a huge bonus for you to have, because that's one less thing that you have to deal with, right? So it's nice to consolidate and have, you know, one type of shampoo or one type of soap, but just have to think about that. And then especially if you have kids in diapers, you know, make sure you have enough diapers. If not, it's going to be a really long trip, right? And then other things like and entertainment. So it was already mentioned here, but think about things like coloring books, you know, board games. You know, if they have a tablet, bring your tablet. I mean, they may not have access to Wi-Fi, but if you have content that you can access on a hard drive or something, that's something that they can do. And then let them pack their own suitcase. I mean, you know, we have these cute little suitcases that we use when we go on vacation. You know, if we had to bug out, if you need a couple minutes to do stuff, get them to have that responsibility to pack their own suitcase with things that they're going to want to bring, because kids change their minds minute to minute. And you know, what they may want to bring 3 months from now on a trip is going to be different than 5 minutes before you leave for the trip. So give them that opportunity to have that responsibility to pack things that they want before you're going. And trust me, it's not going to be anything that you thought of. It's going to be really random stuff. But if they're happy with it, that's great, right? So just trying to cater to their needs. And to me, it's important because if they're busy and occupied, it gives me an opportunity to get stuff done without them being at me all the time. And I know that, you know, chances are my spouse is going to be there, and, you know, I can rely on her, but at the same time, I don't want that responsibility of the children to fall 100% on her shoulders. She's going to need a break as well. She's going to be stressed out. So anything that I can do to help the kids stay busy, it's going to be a huge help for all of us.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Daniel in the live chat here has a good point. As far as food goes, mac and cheese keeps at least 2 years. Mountain House, 30.
Nice.
What kid doesn't like mac and cheese, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Paddle fruit snacks, maybe.
Until you have to bug out, and then they're going to hate it. But
Well, same thing with campfires though. Like maybe a kid that doesn't like poking around with a campfire with their little
Yeah.
poking stick or whatever, right? And playing with the knives, of course. But both of those are going to lead to first aid requirements.
Yeah, and that's on my list, is teaching them some first aid skills.
And some things too, like, when I'm doing like my long-term pantry, I mean, there's the Mountain House stuff, which is 30 years, but a lot of stuff they buy in the grocery stores probably has a 2 or 3 year expiration for at least shelf-stable items like pastas and rice and all that kind of stuff.
Mhm.
But sometimes I pick up bags of Oreos, and I mean, they're only good for 6 months out. Put them in the long-term pantry, and then when you buy some for the household, just rotate the stock so that if you did have to bug out, you do have a couple bags of Oreos. It's not going to sustain you for weeks or months, but you can hold it as like a treat for the kids. I mean, again, this is something that they don't need it, but they're going to want it. And if you can satisfy that requirement, so.
Yeah, it's at least enough to get you through an emergency situation. Like you said, it's kind of a comfort food, almost like a treat. So. Right,
exactly. And sometimes that's just what they need, right? So, I mean, if they're upset, we all know the value of an Oreo or some goldfish, and sometimes all
I'm 26 right? And I still get that way, so.
Yeah, and touching on the first aid again, it's certainly on my list. Is get them introduced to that as soon as you can, and make it something just as basic as, here's how to apply a Band-Aid. You get a little boo-boo, here's how to put it on, and here's how to put it on someone else, and then slowly kind of start building on that skill. But at least it's something that they're learning, and they'll get more comfortable as you go along, and then you can start moving into like first aid courses and some more advanced stuff as they get older, of course. But why not expose them to here's a simple way to put a Band-Aid on, and then just move from there. And it makes them feel like part of the team, right? And it gives them a job, or gives them something that they know how to do, and just makes them feel important. And, I helped fix the boo-boo, right?
Yep.
What else do I have here? Just because I'm a radio geek, radios. What kids don't like goofing around with radios, right? So if you can get even just like a cheap like family band radio from like Canadian Tire or Cabela's or wherever you grab them from, and just throw them the radio and go play hide and seek with them, or go play like radio with them, or if you got a couple of kids, send them off with the radios together and let them chat with each other, and it'll teach them how to use the radio first off. And it's a fun game. Again, all about making it fun. But I've seen tons and tons of kids that just like playing with radios for whatever reason. I played with them when I was a kid too. I'm just a big kid now. I still play with them, but
some things too that that I thought about a while ago is if we do have to bug out, it's probably going to be like we're going to be in a camping situation. Obviously, we recently bought the travel trailer, so that ideally would be what we'd be bugging out in, and that would be kind of like our home away from home. And what I've done is gone to places like the dollar store, the Dollarama, whatever you want to call it, and they have things like a 10-pack of glow sticks for like $1, right? They're not by any means going to light anything up, but the kids love them. They come in different colors. The little packets of powder you can throw in a fire to make it different colors. Again, these are very low cost things that you can do to keep them entertained and to keep them, this is a reward for them at the end of the day, right? And it's all about being able to reward them for things that they do, just like Eric mentioned, making them part of the team, getting them to, help with little tasks and all that kind of stuff, and then have that reward, have that carrot at the end that they can earn, right? And you can spend $50 and get 100 items at the dollar store that can help with these things and help be these rewards that they can work towards, right? And at least for me, like my daughter, my oldest one is 6, so if my youngest daughter, who's 2, gets upset, she's the one that wants to go to her and help comfort her. So that's great, because that's one less thing we have to do, and they kind of work well together as far as that goes, right? So that's just another one of these tasks, just to help comfort the siblings and so on. So
yeah, that's a good point. To bring it back home, if you're cooking, for example, if you're making, let's say, a loaf of bread, include them in that. Let them make their own. You make the big loaf of bread for the family, and then let them make a small little one. Put all the ingredients together, show them how to mix it up in a bowl, put it in the oven with your bigger loaf, and let them see that they can make a small loaf of bread. And again, they can see that they are gaining a skill and knowledge on how to do that. And I'm sure they'll be tickled pink when their little loaf of bread comes out and they're able to eat it, right? And then you've got a larger one as well for the family, and they've learned a new skill, and it's a fun thing to do. And then they can, again, build on that as time passes and they get older. They're able to help out with more meal prepared or prepping and all that kind of stuff. But at least they're learning a skill as far as baking and making bread. Or it could be anything. It doesn't have to be bread. That's just the example I threw in here. You can make, you're making a pizza for the family. They can make a smaller one. It could be anything you want to throw in there.
Well, you're setting them up for success when they have to start adulting, like if they don't, it's amazing how many kids don't have basic cooking skills when they leave the house, right?
Yeah.
And, they trial by fire when they're out living on their own, but it's much better if they have pre-training. Actually, commentary to all your stuff there, to Eric, actually, it's worked out well. In a time when nobody's hiring, my daughter went out, was looking for jobs because she got laid off from her last job because COVID killed the business. Yeah. And she got a job interview from Cabela's because she's been camping, been outdoors, knows how to handle firearms, knives, and has taken a first aid course. And they're like, and what do you do about cooking? And she's like, well, I made my own bread and everything else. They're like, oh, so yeah, she got the interview. And so we'll see what happens the next few days. But it was nice to see because it actually paid off for the real world.
Some life skills. Yeah.
Basic life skills, problem solving skills goes a long ways in the day-to-day life, and you don't really get a lot of that in school. So don't rely on an iPad in public schools to teach your kids these things, because they're not going to.
No, they'll just be on YouTube.
Yeah. Hopefully watching this, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. VT in the live chat has a question as far as Ian is still alive. Has he eaten the kids' cooking?
Well, as a matter of fact, not even a couple weeks ago, my oldest made me steamed pork buns, like the Chinese style pork buns.
Oh.
Fantastic, as well as some onion pancakes, like the Chinese style onion pancakes. And that's been fantastic. So now it's just like, anybody that makes a meal for you, the food always tastes great, because you don't pay for. So it's awfully nice when you can show up in the kitchen that the dinner's already made for both of us. So I'll gladly do the dishes afterwards. And it's been fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
One thing too, I was thinking is, obviously I mentioned that, when you're getting ready to bug out, get the kids to grab their suitcase and their backpack and pack all that kind of stuff, but have something ready to go anyway, because if you have to bug out and you've only got 5 minutes, you're not going to have time. And I say this like it's not going to happen, but it recently happened to us when we had to evacuate for the forest fire. So we only had 5 minutes. So then we don't have an opportunity to give kids that 5 minutes to go get their stuff, because it takes them 5 minutes to put their shoes on. So, at that point, you just put them in the vehicle and go. And that's why each one of the kids has like a big Ziploc bag that we've put, some dinky cars for my son, some dolls for my daughter, just something that they can have, that they don't use a lot of. So they're not really going to miss it if you take it away and put in like a Ziploc bag and store it away. So just have that, because you may not have an opportunity to get them to pack their own toys. So just have something that they can play with, right? And if you don't, and it's something you have an opportunity to pick up toys on the way, great. I mean, it's just going to be something that they're familiar with, that they can help pass the time, right? It's really, I keep falling back on that, but really it's, when you're trying to get stuff done, having kids at you is really not ideal. So being able to occupy their minds is huge. Is one thing that I keep struggling with, is how am I going to keep these kids occupied if I'm away for an extended period of time and they don't have their TV or their tablets and all that kind of stuff.
Yep. No, that's a good point. Another thing I came up with on my list here is, one evening, if you want to go through the pantry, pick out a bunch of stuff in the pantry and then try to put a meal together with your kid out of the stuff that's in the pantry. And then, make it a fun game. Grab everything out. Okay, here's what we have. What can we make? And it kind of gets their mind going, right? Maybe have an idea ahead of time, and then you can kind of push them towards what you actually want to make. But again, make a game out of it. And here's everything in the pantry. All right, what are we making tonight? Right. Get some thinking. Get what do we have available to us? What can we use? How can we cook it? And again, all dependent on their age, right? But that was a good idea.
Yeah. I guess while we're on the topic of kind of skills and things, I just wanted to say that I think everybody in the house, I guess maybe Hugues or somebody else could speak to at what age they should know this, but everyone should kind of know how to turn off the water main and how to turn off the breaker panel. If you've got sparks flying out of an outlet, or there's water pouring out of a sink and you're 45 minutes away at work, you want to make sure that your son or daughter, or maybe even wife, whatever it might be, knows how to shut the water off and turn the breaker off, because that's gonna solve a lot of problems and save a lot of headaches down the road.
That's a great point.
That's actually really good, because I think my wife knows how to do that. So it's not funny, but
no, it's funny because like right now we don't have a water main. We just have a pump house on a separate electrical transformer. So yeah, for us you'd actually have to run down to the pump house and shut off the power there. But it's a very, very good point. Like we have no gas here at all either, so it's hard to teach them to shut off something that doesn't exist. But yeah, the last house I probably should have done that, but they were too young. So
yep.
That's the same for me. I mean, we're not on city water, so once you shut off the main, you're shutting off the well pump. So I think I could talk her through it, but it'd be ideal if she knew how to do it. So
yeah, we're kind of in the same setup with the well and everything, but there's the extra step. If you cut the main off here, 10 seconds later the backup generator comes on.
Oh, wow,
learn how to turn that off too, right? So
right, or else you're not alleviating the power issue.
You're for 10 seconds.
Yeah.
And then it comes back. So
VT in the show notes had a good comment here. It says also building a bug out bag for your dogs or your cats and dogs. I know dogs and cats are not kids in my opinion, but for some people they're fur babies and they're going to be something that they take along with them. Obviously I'm going to think about my kids before I think about our cat, but that's also a good point because you may or may not be able to pick up food along the way. Now if I didn't have any food for our cat, she can eat table scraps, to be honest, if she's hungry enough, but being able to have something that the animal can drink or eat out of a bowl, right? Having food for them, I mean, like obviously even if it's just a bag or two, like something to keep them over for a few days. And then realistically, I mean, you could feed them what you're eating, and if they're not hungry, that's fine, but they're eventually going to be hungry enough that they're going to eat that stuff, right? So
oh yeah, that's a good point though. As far as go bags go, maybe we'll talk about some of the things that we would all put in our go bags for the kiddos. And again, it's all dependent on their age. But for myself, I'd figure you're going to want anything that you'd have for an adult, but the child version, right? So if you're going to carry like fever medicine, electrolytes, like Benadryl, all that kind of stuff for you and whoever else you're making a bug out bag for, you're going to want the child version of that for your kiddos, right? EpiPens, same thing. If you need it for an adult, you might need it for a kid. Just make sure you've got extra in the bug out bag.
And they are color coded as well for the EpiPens for adult and kid.
So just make sure that you've got the appropriate ones for your setup. And we've touched on it already, but like hard candies of some form for a morale booster, or like the Oreo cookies, or something that's gonna help with that reward and with that morale boost if you are actually bugging out. We've touched on games as well, whether they be board games or write down a list of games you guys can play together. Because in a stressful situation, you might forget about some of this stuff, right? So write down a list now, and then you've got the list already pre-built, so you can go, oh yeah, okay, so they really like playing this game. Let's do this, or let's play that. And a couple of board games, if you can fit them in the bug out bag, why not? Entertainment for you, the kiddos, and anybody else that's with you. Then we've touched on diapers as well. Depending on your situation, cloth is probably going to be your best way to go because it's reusable. You can wash it, you can use it multiple times. But if all you've got is disposable, well, that's all you've got.
Yeah, just quick on the topic of cloth diapers, I've got kind of a nice little tip. Actually came from my brother-in-law, but like the toilet shutoff right behind your toilet, you can just go ahead and put a T on there, and then you can plumb a little hose with like a sprayer handle off of that, and then you can still shut off the hose or the toilet, and you can use that sprayer to just kind of blast your cloth diapers off into the toilet, or you've got a bidet if we run out of toilet paper. So
that's a good point. I've seen a lot of those on Amazon. They seem to be pushing those on people now. Since
yeah, it was something I never thought of, and my wife kind of told me about it, and I was like, oh, genius. It's so simple too. I mean, a couple dollars at the plumbing store, and you're in business. So
yeah, that's a good point. I've got a good comment here from Blake and Tia in the live chat. Just talking about they've got 3 kids, 6, 5, and 3. Took the 6-year-old daughter to an overnight gel soft event. So it's Australia's version of airsoft, apparently. And they noticed that she started to understand how to plan ahead, traveling light, but still have enough on you, being ready for anything unexpected, how to light a butane cooker, how to position yourself to shoot the other team, and be in cover, and most importantly, how to make coffee. Coffee is very important. Yeah.
And of course, the lesson that somebody shooting back at you does hurt.
Yeah. Yeah, this is true. That's a good point.
I think too, other than physical things that we would do for bugging out with kids, I think it's kind of a mental game as well, right? So thinking about under a stressful situation, people don't tend to eat regular meals like they should, and that's especially true for children, I think. So I can get frustrated when the kids don't eat 3 square meals a day because I find that as though I'm wasting food and they're just eating junk or snacks. But at the same time, I have to understand that if I'm stressed out, they're stressed out. If they see me being stressed out, they're going to stress out, and it's going to lead to, them probably not eating the regular meals that they should. So I think us as parents, when bugging out with children, have to adjust our expectations of what and how our children are going to behave. Having a set bedtime at 8 o'clock is probably not going to happen. You can try to, children, to me, this is just my opinion, I'm not telling anybody how to parent, but they need routine and structure and all that kind of stuff, right? So trying to find that balance as quickly as possible after an event that causes you to bog out, I think is kind of important. So not letting them go to bed at like 11 o'clock or midnight every night, but trying to rein that back in, try to find some balance again, but understand that things are going to be different. They're going to be stressed out, and because of that, you kind of have to adjust your expectations a little bit, right? It's the same thing. I mean, if you have structure and routine at home and you travel for a week, I mean, that's all out the window. Kids are going to bed later, they're not eating as they should and all that kind of stuff. Same thing, but add a lot of stressors to it because there's a lot of unknowns, right? So it's not just about what you're going to pack, but how you're going to act as well.
Oh yeah, they pick up on absolutely everything. Even if you're not showing or you don't think you're showing stress or any kind of signs, they're still going to pick up on the fact that you're stressed. They're still going to pick up on the fact that everything's different or things have changed or something's just not quite right.
Yeah.
And it's going to take some time for them to adjust to it, just like it's going to take you some time to adjust to it.
Yeah. And I find my daughter who's 6, I mean, she'll be reading something, but she'll listen to a conversation my wife and I are having. And a couple hours later, after her gears have been turning for a few hours, then she'll ask some pretty pointed questions for a 6-year-old. Right. So it's you have to understand that even though they're 6, they're listening, they're picking up on stuff. And having those conversations sometimes means that maybe it's better to have them away from the children, because then that's going to cause them stress and anxiety. And if you don't think 6-year-olds are capable of having anxiety, guess what? They can, and they pick up on their parents' anxiety as well. So
they're little, they're not stupid. Right, like they're just smaller versions of you, right? So I mean, yeah, no, after they pick up on it, and yeah, like you said, the wheels sometimes turn for days, and then all of a sudden they'll ask you some questions about something that you talked about, what you thought was privately, but I'll have a conversation with the wife in the kitchen, and all of a sudden, in the mid conversation, one of the kids will pipe up from one of their bedrooms and add their 2 cents. So yeah, they're always listening.
And I think the other day, I mean, this was like a while ago, but I killed a bee. I thought it was a wasp, but I killed the bee. And then I said something about it. And then a couple days later, my daughter, who's 6, says, "Hey, Daddy, if I were a bee, would you kill me?" And I'm like, "What are you talking about?" And she says, "Well, the other day you killed the bee." And I'm like, "Oh my God," like this, you know what I mean? But it's those types of things that you have to come to expect and think about a stressful situation where things are not the norm.
Mm-hmm.
They're out of their routine, and you're showing anxiety and stress, which, as much as I say I wouldn't, I probably would. And to, I think it was Eric or Ian's point, I may not think I'm showing those stressors, but chances are somebody who knows me is going to be able to pick up on those pretty quickly, right? So
yeah, everybody's got their tell. Like even if you're just short and snappy with them, they'll pick up on. They'll assume it's them, and if you don't explain to them that it's not them that's making you snappy, it's a thing too, right?
Yep.
So
this is all the things I have to look forward to when my little guy starts talking.
Well, and I mean, don't even get me started on like talking about the what ifs, right? Because like obviously my kids are not oblivious to what I do on the podcast here or anything else, and they'll ask me all sorts of what ifs, like what happens after November 3rd if Party X wins or Party Z wins. Yeah, I mean, yeah, we could talk about what ifs, or we could talk about like the budget. What happens if the budget goes out of hand in Canada, and like what's going to happen to the Canadian dollar, and yeah, there's all sorts of things that they want to talk about, but sometimes they're a little afraid to. But sometimes just asking them what's on their mind, it can actually, like you say, stress inoculate, or at least get them thinking about it ahead of time, so that when some does come up, it's not all at once. At least they've had time to chew on it, right?
Yep, that's such a good point.
VT in the live chat here has a good point. On the electrical panel has a number of breakers to set off and what's on the breakers all typed out. So all you got to do is look at the sheet, and you know what to hit and what to turn on, what to turn off if need be. So great idea.
Awesome.
Yeah, I actually made a like a list, like a step-by-step instructions that I went as far as laminating as well in case anything happened to it. But it's not only for my wife, but it's if I have to leave the house and the house is running on generator power, if my neighbor had to come over, although I think he could probably figure it out, I would rather the steps be followed in that order so nobody gets electrocuted or nobody, nothing gets fried. But having those things is we typically have it as tribal knowledge within our minds of what has to be done and when. But if you're not available or you're incapacitated, somehow these things still have to get done, right? So putting that tribal knowledge in like a information repository, whether you print it out or have it in a folder or something like that, it's quite important.
Yeah, that's great. Like having a clear, concise emergency plan for whatever disaster scenario is kind of common for your area. You know, around here we have tornadoes, power outages, blizzards, things like that. Kind of having those listed out, clear, concise, easy to follow for the kids. They got a sheet there in their backpack, one at home, one in the locker, whatever it might be. Good thing to have on there too is like names of emergency contacts, phone numbers, things like that. Those are all good things to kind of teach your kids too.
I think there's someone else on the podcast that lives and dies by checklists. Hey, Ian?
Yeah.
maybe one or two now and then, yeah.
I don't think Ian could go to the bathroom without a checklist. So.
Pretty much, no. Yeah.
I'm the same way. So.
But you know what? I mean, I joke, but I mean, I've come to be that person that relies on checklists so heavily, because I find that there's nothing that requires 5 steps. It's always 15, 20, 30 steps, and you forget one step or you do it out of order, and things can be disastrous, right? So, and I find that, you know, even when I'm calm, cool, and level-headed, I've got all the time in the world, I'll forget a step. And imagine if you're under a stressful situation, I'll forget 10 steps, right? So,
well, you can basically end up, if you're under, you know, some pretty heavy duress, you're going to get tunnel vision. And unless you actually have a checklist or something, like some set of instructions or whatever to look right at, guarantee you're going to forget something. You'll remember it 5 minutes after you're supposed to, but, you know.
Yeah.
I forget something when I leave the house just to run to the store on a good day. Imagine under stress. Yeah, there's going to be a few things, but I don't have that list to go over. And Doran in the live chat's got a good point. Hangry kids are terrifying. The only thing scarier than hangry kids is hangry wives.
Yeah. Amen.
Yeah.
Well, one less thing to worry about. If you prep ahead of time and have their favorite snacks or their favorite distraction snacks on hand, it's like, yeah, one less thing to worry about, and you can focus on the task at hand.
I have it on the bug out list of things to do, because obviously I've got my bins and all that kind of stuff. So if I had to bug out, I think we spoke about it before, if I had like 15 minutes or 30 minutes or an hour, these are the things I would bring. And one of the things that's on each and every single amount of time, I guess, is we have kind of like a cold pantry where I have a bunch of snacks from Costco, like, you know, 30 packs of cookies and all that kind of stuff. That's coming with me regardless of, you know, because this is very calorie dense food, not healthy, but calorie dense, and they're snacks. So even if I can't get 3 square meals in a day, if I have enough of this, I have enough calories, and to that point, there are things that the kids and the wife, to that extent, want, and, you know, it's going to keep them happy, which is going to keep me happy. So that's a great point.
Yeah. And we've got another comment here in the live chat from Wood Pedal. Says, with 2 parents on site, tag team with the kiddos for your sanity. And even if you've got, like, it's you and a friend or you and another family member, absolutely, why not tag team and work together? That's what the whole preparedness thing is all about, right?
Yeah. And if you're in a mutual aid group, or, you know, you're teaming up with like another family, you know, being able to give the 2 other parents even an hour off to themselves while you watch their kids, and then obviously they're gonna hopefully be able to do that with your kids as well, right? So that's huge. And being able to, like I said earlier, like, you know, I expect that my wife would be, or my spouse would be with me to help me with the kids, but sometimes I need to take the kids and give her an hour, even if it's to read a book. I mean, you know, there's things that are going to have to be done before we can do this, but you know, when things kind of quiet down or slow down, give her that hour to do whatever she wants to do. Whether she wants to check her phone or read a book or just sit in the car in peace and quiet, give your spouse that opportunity, because they're going to be under stress as well. So
definitely. And just touching quickly on, like, kind of mentioned the mutual assistance group, having I guess if you're expecting kids, maybe some sort of midwife or a pediatrician or doctor, you know, friend, family, neighbor, something like that. Somebody you can call if there's an emergency. Let's say there's a blizzard and you can't get to the hospital and you're in labor, something like that. Or even, you know, okay, the kid's got some weird rash. You don't really want to spend the money to rush him to the doctor, to the pediatrician. You know, you've got the neighbor up the street. Hey, can you look at my kid's finger, or reset it, or whatever it might be? And you know, maybe you're a plumber, electrician. You can barter some work or some skills or something in that direction. But
well, it's all about knowing the community around you and who can help with what, right?
Yeah.
Right. Ian, did you have a bit of a story?
Yeah, matter of fact, I did. So yeah, actually, kind of funny. You guys pretty much covered everything I wanted to talk about for the most part, but I guess until you have kids, it's kind of it is a bit of a life changer. I know it's a bit of a cliche, but I mean, it's hard to actually relate to people who don't have kids how different your life can be. But funnily enough, when I first moved to BC, I was talking to a couple of coworkers about taking the kids camping to, teach them how to do some basic stuff. And the one guy says to me, he's like, hey, I know a great place you can camp. You just have to hike 15 miles into the woods. And, it's walk-in only, and you have to carry everything you need. And yeah, you should have a great time with the kids. I'm like, they're like 6 and 8, right? Like, and he couldn't. I was trying to convince them that, like, no, they can't carry 60 pounds of gear and all their own food and maybe a couple propane bottles for me and everything else. While I carry absolutely everything else in to do this camping trip. I said, like, I have to actually be able to drive there, or like, maybe a short walk or whatever. And just it was like a dog watching television. It was kind of funny. Like, they just couldn't quite pick up on what I was getting at, because it's a whole different scenario when you have to start involving kids, because they can't, carry their fair share. They don't understand why they're carrying their fair share, sometimes under stress. And so it's like arguing with a person on the other side of the political spectrum. Sometimes you just don't get it, right?
Yeah.
Well, it's funny because, sorry, finish up.
No, go ahead. That's all good.
No, I was just gonna say, like, I understand that I own a travel trailer, but I'm into minimalism camping as well. And somebody wouldn't think that these two things kind of go together. But at the same time, it's like, I can't go camping with a backpack for an entire week, 5 miles into the woods with my kids. It's just not going to happen. I can't carry enough. And, it's not that 2 hours into a hike, they're going to start complaining. 3 minutes into a hike, they're going to start complaining. So these are just not things. I mean, 50 miles in is just, it's earth shattering, right? Like, for a kid, that would just be, like, that's the other side of the earth, right? Like, that's...
Well, if you want to have aversion therapy, that's a great way to do it, right? It's instead of just going to a campsite and practicing fun stuff like fire starting, you're going to make them do like a death march into a campsite. They're not going to come again, quite simply.
Honestly, from for my 6-year-old, I think that maybe 15 to 20 minute hike would be the absolute max. Right. And the other thing, too, is that if something happens and I'm 15 miles into the woods and I've got to hike out 15 miles, I mean, if I'm injured, that's one thing. I'll have to deal with that. Right. But if my kid's injured, I mean, to carry a kid 15 miles, or if you have 2 kids with you, that becomes a pretty daunting thing. And the thing is, even if you can carry them out, what if they're injured to the point where you need help immediately? 15 miles into the woods, being a first responder, I understand that that's probably a 2 or 3 hour response. By the time you minimum, right? And it doesn't matter if you have a satellite communicator. By the time they get people out to you, you're talking hours. You're not talking minutes, hours. So the further you are away, the further you are from help. And I don't want to be that far with children, right? I mean, with an adult, different story, obviously, but children, no.
Yeah,
I don't want to be no more than like a 15-minute walk to my truck. So.
Yeah. And talking camping, I'll just touch on one other thing I had on my list here is, if you are going to start doing that outdoors kind of adventure stuff with them, teach them about, if you're lost, find a tree to hug, find somewhere to stay put that's safe, because that's going to make it easier to be found. So start instilling that in them as well as you're kind of venturing out into the more wilderness type of environments with them, because chances are that they can potentially get lost. And if they do, you want to be able to find them pretty quick, right?
That's really good, Eric. And
I think under the what ifs, right? Like, I mean, why do we have a whistle? Well, this is why, because if you get separated or whatever, and stay put, don't keep moving around. And like you said, hug a tree. I mean, there's plenty of tree huggers out here, but of a different sort. But I mean, there's a lot of validity to that, right? Because I mean, the more you move around, the more randomness you're throwing into a search pattern, as I'm sure Hugues can attest, right?
Mm-hmm. And I mean, I've relayed that to my daughter. I remember we were doing geocaching, which is, I find, a great way to get her, get the kids out, get the kids into the woods and all that kind of stuff. And I said, if you're lost in the woods and you come upon a trail or a road, don't cross that road. Follow it one way or the other. It's either going to be a dead end, or you're going to get to a bigger road and a bigger road. And eventually, you're going to get to a highway of some sort, right? Like, you're just follow the road, because if anything, people and searchers are going to be on ATVs and trucks and all that kind of stuff. And I mean, we here with the search and rescue group that we have, we're about 50 people, but about 20 of us are on this mechanized response team, which is basically just ATVs. They only call us out when they need ATV response. And obviously, people walking through the woods are doing 1-2 miles an hour when you're trudging through the woods. On ATVs, we're doing 50, 60 miles an hour. Right. And we're just going along all the forestry access roads and all that kind of stuff. So, I mean, if you're a hunter or anybody, even a kid, I mean, if you instill that in them, if they find the road, follow it, right?
Yep.
Don't go back into the woods. So
Yeah, be as visible as you possibly can be.
Yep. And I mean, if there's a helicopter overhead, the likelihood of them finding you through dense brush, probably not that great. If you're on a road, that's awesome.
You're going to stand out pretty good.
You're going to stand out. Yep.
Yeah, I think that covers off most of the talking points, unless anyone on the panel has anything else to add.
Yeah, I've got a few things just on like maybe things to stock up on or kind of have on the shelf.
Sure.
Depending on where you're at in I guess in the process of having kids, maybe have some contraceptives, condoms, or pregnancy tests, depending on what your desired outcome is. Those are things that don't really expire, cheap, easy to buy, and just kind of throw them in the closet.
Yeah, one means you don't have to listen to this episode. The other one means you do.
Exactly. Yep. Pick your poison, I guess, right?
Yep.
Famous last words. Only sailors use condoms. Oh!
Another thing, prenatals or multivitamins. So I guess if you're, developing a child, if you're the wife or whatever, something good to have. Also, maybe some dried milk replacer, formula, or freeze-dried foods to supplement. Not everybody is able to breastfeed their child, and God forbid you can't get food or something like that from the store. At least you've got, a bag of milk replacer on the shelf, or maybe you yourself, you have to go on antibiotics or some sort of medicine that you're not able to, to feed your own child for a while.
Good point.
At least you've got something to kind of fall back on. In terms of
Separated from
food,
your wife even, right?
yeah. Homemade baby food. I mean, applesauce. If you've got like canned peas and carrots, it's basically just blended up stuff. So pretty easy to make your own baby food.
Yep.
Have plenty of books, learning materials at home, as well as clothes. Lots of clothes. Both, have clothes, like change of clothes packed for trips, and also have lots of clothes and shoes for the kids to grow into. That's why hand-me-downs are so important, so popular, especially back in the olden days. Kids are going to grow out of their clothes like constantly, like every 6 months, shoes, everything like that. They're going to grow out of them. So having things for your kids to grow into, you might have a closet stock for your kid right now, but SHTF, and you're a year down the road and your kid's growing out of the shoes, out of all of his jackets, snow pants, all that stuff. What do you do?
Speaking of hand-me-downs, we found a really good resource for that has been Facebook Marketplace and Kijiji. Tons of people all around, their kids have worn it 3-4 times, grown out of it, and now they're
garage sales are awesome too. I mean, you can go there with like $40 and you could stock up for 3 years for your kids. Garage sales are a good cheap place to get clothes too.
That too, yeah.
We find that. Sorry, you go ahead there. I talked to.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, when packing for camping, we found that a bit of a hack is, is placing an outfit into a large Ziploc bag for every day that you're going away. So, if we're going away for 5 days, each kid has basically 5 Ziploc bags. Each one of those is one outfit for the day. And then you obviously have extra clothes for incidentals if they get wet or dirty and all that kind of stuff. But it just gives them the opportunity to know what they're going to wear every day. May not have an opportunity to do this in a bug out situation. I mean, you just grab all the clothes you can, but maybe once you get kind of settled in, it's part of their routine. You kind of fall back into that, right? So that they're not wearing 3 outfits a day. You're saying this is Monday's outfit and that's it. Because give my daughter the opportunity, she'll change into 6 outfits in one day. So it's not funny.
Yep. Speaking of daughters, I guess the last thing I had there was, depending on their age, have some feminine hygiene products, tampons, pads, Midol, that sort of thing. I guess I'm not sure as far as consumption goes, how much you go through and how much you need to have stocked up, but that's something to talk with the wife about, I guess.
Yeah, it's pretty much always on their person at any given time to begin with. And then obviously it's a natural progression from there. They learn their lessons either the easy way or the hard way, and what works and what doesn't. So that's a self-correcting problem.
Yeah.
But it's a good point on the homemade baby food. You can take carrots or beans or lentils or whatever you would have for yourself to consume. You can mash it up and turn it into baby food that your little one can eat, depending on their age, of course. But good point that I'm sure not many people would think of. So 2 birds, 1 stone, right? You can feed you and you can feed the little one, and everything's good.
Yeah.
All right. Well, with that, shall we move into the podcast challenge?
All right, so talk to your kids about the subject of preparedness. Ask if there's anything that concerns them and address it. So it might either be an item that you're missing in your preps, and maybe they're just seeing it and you're not, or maybe it's just a concern they have as far as, under the what ifs. But I think the more you talk to them, the better off they are. So just have a little chat with them if you can.
Yeah, no harm in that.
And TACCOM Canada 2020 has been delayed until April 23rd to 25th, 2021. You can see the details for the show at the ticket link in the show notes.
There's also a link on our website, prepperpodcast.ca. Let's move into some shout outs.
Okay, I got a shout out to Colin for the meetup in Ottawa. That was awesome. Also, congratulations to Better Ian. He made a choice on his biological security device, which was fantastic. So, got to meet his new puppy dog today. It was fantastic.
Nice.
Just a quick shout out to my good buddy Lucas. Gave us a bunch of ground venison, so it's going to hopefully tie us over until we get our pigs processed here in about 8 weeks.
Nice. Nothing like some venison.
No, that's awesome.
Unless you go back and listen to our hunting episodes quite a while ago.
The unsuccessful hunting episode.
Hey, we tried.
Yeah.
All right, email and iTunes reviews. So we've got a couple of new iTunes reviews since the last episode. So we've got one that says, you guys are great and we enjoy listening. We're having our share of gun control issues in Virginia, and nice to see your take on the same thing in Canada. So yeah, there's been a few things go on with firearms here the last little while, but
it's not about guns; it's about control.
Yeah,
Keep
I had a
fighting
boating
the good fight down there.
and then we've got another one here that says, "From communist Sweden, I send my best wishes." So we're making it all over the world.
Wow, that's pretty cool. Good
Awesome.
to hear.
That's neat. So appreciate the comments, and thanks for sending them in. And both of those were 5 stars, so those obviously help boost the show and let other people find us. So much appreciated. And with that, I will bring episode number 77 of the Canadian Prepper Podcast to an end. You can find the podcast on iTunes, Podbean, Spotify, or of course your favorite podcast app. Please help us out and submit a review like the 5 stars we got there. It helps other people find us.
Yeah, we record these shows live on Facebook and YouTube. If you want an early peek at the shows, please subscribe to the YouTube channel, Canadian Prepper Podcast, and click on the notifications tabs. This will give you alerts when we go live. And if you got any questions or advice for me, you can email into the show at tyler@prepperpodcast.ca.
And I can be reached at hfxprepper@gmail.com. And I also have my own YouTube channel. Just search for HFX Prepper. You can also reach me at Hugues@prepperpodcast.ca. Hugues, sorry.
I'm looking forward to the latest video on your trailer upgrades.
I know. I'm
That was a
getting
hint. Anyways, you can reach Ian directly by emailing me at theislandretreat@gmail.com. You can also find me on Canadian Patriot Podcast, which is on iTunes and YouTube. We record on Monday evenings at 9 p.m. Eastern. There you can find us discussing why government, waste, and society makes me worry about my kids' future. And my dog's anger.
Please check me out at rapidsurvival.com. You can get me there on the live chat while you're buying some prepper gear. You can also email me at feedback@prepperpodcast.ca. Well, thanks for joining us this evening. And until next time, be prepared, stay safe,
and keep learning.